All right, let's rock and roll. Okay, hey, hello, I'm Ted Leverette, and thanks for tuning in with me. We're gonna talk about how to get, this is for you sellers and lenders, how to get, avoid, or negotiate the personal guarantees. And we're gonna do it in the context of M&A, buying and selling businesses, for small and mid-sized businesses. And now almost everything I cover will pertain to really big deals, except that this topic might not come up on really big deals. And the topic is personal guarantees. We're going to look at things like reality, pitfalls, alternatives, workarounds, and do's and don'ts. Let's start with this question. Why should I have faith in you if you don't have faith in yourself? Now, whether or not that's asked, that question points to why borrowers and buyers, sellers and others, have trouble reconciling their respective positions. It's actually a pretty good question to ask yourself if you're thinking about buying a business, because, hey, if you're afraid of a personal guarantee, maybe you should be afraid of the company or the way you're thinking about structuring the transaction. All right, I'm Ted Leverette. I'm the original business buyer advocate. For more than 30 years, I've been training and guiding people worldwide who buy in small and mid-sized businesses. Hey, I'm not a broker, never have been. I don't sell businesses. I don't represent sellers. Everything I'm going to cover today and everything you learn about PGs and buying businesses will be greatly affected by buyer competition. Hey, you don't want to outbid the most ignorant buyers, do you? And that's why it's extremely vital, that you avoid or beat your competition. Of course, sellers love this. My book can help you do it. How to prepare yourself and find the right businesses to buy. And if you want better results during due diligence, valuation, negotiation, read my other book, How to Buy the Right Business the Right Way. You can get them on Amazon. Okay, look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to engage in the unlawful practice of law. I will, however, try to help you see the business ramifications associated with PGs. We're going to call them PGs, personal guarantees. And guess what? You can just talk to your lawyer about it. So here's a spoiler alert. Unreasonable demands by sellers repel the savviest and perhaps the best qualified buyers. And too many buyers are losing deals because they won't provide their PG. And sellers and buyers do it because, well, they don't know what they don't know. They simply and mistakenly, they act upon their unreasonable expectations. And by the way, that's sort of normal on the playing field, isn't it? Okay, look, PGs are negotiable, but you've got to know how to do it. Today, we're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you a few tips. Let's start. Begin, and I'm going to follow up on what I just said. Begin with the realistic and informed expectations and goals. They're going to make or break your financial future. You see, the unrealistic or the uninformed expectations, well, they lead to troublesome situations. And not only for you, but also for everyone else involved. Hey, look, you've probably heard this. Up to 95% of potential business buyers, we call them searchers, never end up purchasing a company. It's a sad truth. And some of these buyers waste, oh man, they waste a lot of money. They waste their time because they're just failing, and they don't buy a business. And in some cases, they deplete, if not their life savings, they deplete their deal-making money. And guess what? Now there's no deal. So let's try not to waste time on deals that are not going to go through. Okay, look, it's not just buyers who suffer. Sellers are also at risk. How? Every time sellers communicate with buyers, they're putting their confidentiality at risk. You better think about that, sellers. Okay, today, I'm going to talk about a solution to that problem. What I'm going to cover And by the way, you'll see some of this stuff on my website later. I'll update it after this. It's going to enable a meeting of the minds between buyers and sellers. Now, I'm not going to be able to tell you everything you need to know, but don't worry, you're going to get pretty close to 100 ideas. But what I am going to do is provide you with some signposts and some warnings and lots of tips about the nasty curves in the road that you may encounter. Actually, you're going to encounter them. And you're going to get ideas you can use to evaluate what's being asked of you sellers and what's being asked of you buyers, so you can what? Try to negotiate a better deal. If you made a note, you should have written negotiate down about 3 or 4 times right about now, because people are not doing it when they should. Okay, look, I'm going to encourage you to learn a whole lot more about the pitfalls in buying and selling businesses. That's why I recommend my books. I hope you'll get them. If you follow the right approaches, you're going to reduce your risk. Isn't that why you're here? And that's what you want? Okay, let's look at, I'm looking at the screen share. This is the first question that came in. These are sort of, they're not exactly in the order in which people email them to me, but I sorted them in a way that I think unravels as I give tips in between questions. All right, what's the first one? Well, let me read this thing. Well, the question is how to convince a business buyer to personally guarantee seller financing. Personal guarantees are something you need to think about if you want to buy or sell a business, particularly the small and, let's say, medium-sized ones. It's challenging to avoid providing a PG. That's the fact of life, especially when you're seeking financing from some sources. We'll talk about that. But guess what? It's possible to negotiate concessions or limit your risk. So what? Your exposure to personal liability goes down. You're going to get a lot of tips for that. Oh, let me see what else I have on this question. Okay, look. Even though I'm going to give you dozens, almost 100 today, facts, tips, strategies, warnings, you're not going to be able to get everything you want. So compromise might have to be the second note if you haven't made it. It's really important to look at the potential benefits of signing a personal guarantee, such as, guess what? Getting the money you need to do the deal. When applying for a loan, your creditworthiness, your business experience, and your reputation are crucial. That's what the lenders are looking at when they're assessing your eligibility. Now, look at some lenders prefer certain types of borrowers or uses of borrowed funds. They prefer them over others. I'm not talking about blacklisting for those of you who want to scold me for saying that, but lenders, well, they play by the golden rule. They have the gold, you'll play by their rules. So look, it's important to note that if you want to acquire an unprofitable, let's say a loser, well, you're going to have to sign a PG, especially if you're using borrowed money. I mean, the seller might not care because they're trying to dump their loser on you. Okay, here's a tip. Listen for the tactics, this is today, listen for the tactics that are most likely to work for you in your situations. Make sure to jot down a keyword. Remember what I said earlier? Jot down a keyword or a phrase to help you remember the topic. You can refer to this video later. I'll post it on YouTube, maybe tomorrow. I'll also put stuff on my website. You can use those keywords or short phrases, maybe when you listen to this show, or you just want to Google to learn more about a particular topic. This is vital. Otherwise, I'd have to explain every single line item and we'll never get done. For owners, sellers, buyers, borrowers, all of you, you need to present your case effectively if you want to negotiate PGs. Hey, don't wing it. This is what people do, and they lose worthwhile deals. Instead, what I'm known for, you've seen my videos, I hope, I'm all about building bridges. And if you build bridges with people who are on opposite sides so you can negotiate, well, guess what? You can get what you want. But you can't wing it. You got to have a communication script. I mean a script. Now, my clients, we rehearse this stuff. We rehearse it on Zoom so they could get an Academy Award performance. And have an outline. You got to have outlines that do what? Well, if you do something and somebody responds in a way you didn't expect, you better have a backup plan, and outlines can help you while you're talking to people. Hey, if it's on Zoom, you can look at it. I'm looking at notes in an outline right now. What's wrong with that? All right. What goes wrong? Well, I'll say what you need to do. Be transparent and be trustworthy. It's all about relationship building. And you need to offer incentives that show everybody who could be involved in the PG that they can benefit. If you don't show benefit, how are you going to get one from a buyer, or how are you going to avoid one if you're a borrower? You get it. So you got to pitch your offer, pitch your rationale, and that rationale better cover why you want that PG, say you're an owner or lender, or why you're denying it. It means if you're a buyer or a borrower, you better have a good rationale. Otherwise, they're just going to tell you to pound sand. That's the other side of the deal. Okay, the reality, guess what? It's a common practice. That's what we're talking about. It's crucial. You need to be nice, 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 nice. People prefer to do business with what? People they like. I'm going to pause once in a while when I say something you just absolutely need to get. Okay, look, sellers. I'm talking to you, sellers. Nobody wants to increase their risk. So you've got to showcase your business's benefits. So those SIMs, confidential information memorandums, and the other stuff we see that look like crap, that are crap, right away, anyone looking at your offering, buyers, they just may want to go to school on you. They're never going to sign a personal guarantee. So at least try to get those better. I have videos on that. You ought to watch them. Some of them actually have warnings when you tune into them because, well, they tell the truth about what you need to know, and it's not pretty. One more time, PGs are an essential aspect of buying and selling businesses, and you need to be able to negotiate. Once you know what to do, you can do it. Let's look at the second question. I'm going to try not to ramble on too much on some of these tips. Next question. Oh yeah. What can a seller do if their buyer defaults? Now, parenthetically, even if it's not fraud. We're going to cover that later. Just get an idea. What can sellers do? So listen up, owners, and maybe lenders. Let's consider, well, some of the insights that when someone fails to fulfill their promises, what are you going to do? Well, I'll tell you what, you need to act fast, lickety-split, swiftly, thoughtfully, in any situation where it looks like there's a default about to happen or has happened. Because guess what? Any hesitation by you can, well, it can cause you to lose out on important benefits. In other words, getting paid. The first step, remember, right now we're looking at the sellers and lenders. First step, well, evaluate the other party's value to you. Consider any additional benefits that may be at risk beyond the default. In other words, you don't want to, what's that thing? You don't want to spite your nose to bite your face, or bite your face to spite your, one of those things. Keep in mind that sometimes you may have to give something to receive something else in return. It's not just get the lawyer and go after him. If it becomes clear that the default will result in the end of the deal, it's crucial to immediately talk to the right lawyer at the right time, because lawyers are equipped to handle these situations. They'll provide the guidance, and they'll position you. This is important. They'll position the defaulting party and the company to manage that risk. Now, you still could end up losing everything, but at least you have some shot of not. Now, during these conversations with your lawyers, be sure you say to them, what are the various scenarios and alternatives? I see too many clients, well, buyers, and once in a while owners, who talk to lawyers. They sit there just listening like they're in class, and anything the lawyer says, they just swallow. Don't do that. Whatever they're telling you, remember, I don't give legal advice. This is business advice. Say to the lawyer, is there another way to do it? Is there another scenario I will look at? What are the alternatives? Could I get what I want in another way? If you force them to talk, you might find something you'd prefer than what they use in their boilerplate answers. So I'm not trying to shade lawyers here. I'm just letting you know that they're only as good as you handle them. Don't get into a confrontation with the defaulting party. You may not win it. There's always mediation. So think about that. That's one of the things you talk to the lawyer about. Okay, now for you in the selling position, let me give you a tip. Buyers can, and by the way, should persuade you to waive personal guarantees, and they do it by demonstrating their capability to operate the company after they buy it. So guess what? Your risk is less. They're probably going to pay you. Now, if you're a seller, you can counter that argument by stating you need that personal guarantee from the buyer because it gives you peace of mind. I'll come at that in another way in a little while. Okay, here's a tip. In fact, you might want to make a note. How are you going to handle that, buyers, if a seller says, oh, I just want it for my peace of mind? What are you going to say? You don't care about their peace of mind? This is why we work on scripts. How about some reality? That's the other thing I'm kind of known of. Bridges in reality. Here's the antidote for personal guarantee risks. Buy the best businesses for sale only. Look what I'm wiggling. I hope you're seeing it. I'm wiggling my cursor around the screen share. Best businesses for sale only. That's the antidote to PG risk. You buy wonderful businesses, chances are they're going to succeed unless you try to wreck them. So why not give a PG? You can always hire industry experts before and after you buy businesses. What? They can help you prepare yourself and then later run the company. When you get into the company, you can motivate and let's say try to retain the top employees. All these things protect your investment. And that's one of the reasons why you shouldn't be afraid of PGs. Now, here's another question. What is it here? Oh yeah, what's typically in a PG? Well, when you sign a personal guarantee, you are committing more of your resources so that you're ensuring that your debts are going to be paid. Typically, personal guarantees, they're going to contain provisions that describe the obligation, the duration, and the scope of the guarantee. They're going to cover things like the payment terms and the liability of the guarantor, governing law, and signatures. Now, I almost didn't make a note about signatures because, everybody signs. Wait till you hear what I say about this later. The way you sign, it could be the beginning of an end for you if something goes wrong. Look, if the personal guarantee is ambiguous or incomplete, which a lot of them are, in fact, most of the ones I've seen, it could lead to confusion and disputes. So it's not good. It's essential to ensure that your personal guarantee is crystal clear and all encompassing. Otherwise, you can expect misunderstandings down the line. What about this question? How can I avoid giving my personal guarantee? I'm going to address that throughout this entire presentation. Right now, I'll give you a few ideas, and we will dive into specifics later. You can reduce personal guarantees, or at least the probability of giving one is, first, how about avoiding transactions that require personal guarantees? Now, it's not always possible. Hey, but isn't it worth exploring other financing options? I mean, when I work with my clients, one of the first things we do, even before pre-LOI due diligence, is we say, how in the hell are we going to finance this? And if that's not possible, let's just dump this deal before we waste time on it. And part of that is saying, what are the various ways to finance it? If the only way is an SBA loan or some other, let's say, fancy footwork, we better know we can qualify it. Otherwise, it's a waste of time to continue. Number two, negotiate with the party that's requesting that guarantee. You might be able to limit the scope, or maybe negotiate other terms that reduce your exposure. Talking to you, buyers and borrowers. Third, ask the seller, just like we do with lawyers, ask the seller if there are other options that do not require the personal guarantee. Sometimes sellers may be willing to accept alternative financing arrangements. Fourth, consider buying a business that's not doing well. I know the get-rich-quick nitwits out there pitching that stuff, but it is true that you can avoid personal guarantees if you buy a dog because the owner's trying to dump his lousy business on you. I might cover that again later because I see so many people falling for this nonsense. Now, if you're a professional turnaround artist and you'll keep listening, didn't mean to offend you. Fifth, hey, use a business entity such as an LLC or a corporation, but don't think it's going to totally shield you from personal liability. You could still be at risk. Your lawyer will explain it. I'm going to show you some risks in a few minutes. Sixth, improve your credit score to demonstrate your financial responsibility and your creditworthiness. Seventh, demonstrate the business's ability to pay debts and leases. And I'm talking about if you have a business entity, you guys who have or you claim to have private equity groups and other things, show that you have the ability to handle what you're agreeing to. And likewise, the company you're going to buy, show the seller and the lender that it's going to have the ability to pay its debts, leases, and other things. And you're going to have to, well, they're going to ask you to show financial statements, projections, and who knows what other evidence. You got to show your financial health, what you have now, what the business will have if you get control. Eighth, consider alternative financing. Here are just a couple: crowdfunding, peer-to-peer lending, even equipment financing. You can avoid personal guarantees there. I mean, maybe, not always. And finally, hire a qualified lawyer. Okay, lawyers, all you guys that wrote to me saying, Ted, don't pull the rug out from under us. Look how many times I'm reminding people. Lawyers can review the contracts. They can negotiate on your behalf. They can wear the black hat. They can provide guidance. You still need someone like me who can help you with the transactions, the searches, etc. Don't forget, and don't lose these lawyers who did your divorce, or some other searcher said, oh, this guy works cheap, or he works on speculation or contingent. If you have to do that, you got to wonder what in the hell you're trying to do. I know I'm offending some people there. Remember, reducing and avoiding personal guarantees. It's going to require planning, careful planning. It's going to require negotiation. You better know how to do it. And expertise. If you don't have it, you better buy it. If you follow what we're talking about so far, you will reduce your risk. You will protect your assets, or at least better than you otherwise would. Now, what I'd like to talk about is some marketplace perspective. If you're thinking about an SBA loan, you better keep this in mind. To guarantee that loan, the SBA and the lenders who are providing it, they're going to typically require a personal guarantee. But on the upside, remember, they offer generous benefits. Like what? Well, how about maybe a 10-year term, or no financial covenants, or maybe a 10% minimum equity, we'll call it down payment requirement. Those are just some of the benefits that you can get from SBA. If you're out of the USA, well, you don't have that. However, if you're a larger company, this is good news. You have lots of other options. And the first one is just simply conventional lending, because they may not require the personal guarantee if you're the right person for the deal and the company's right for the lender. Now, with the conventional, you may have to settle for a shorter payment term. You might have to put in more equity or bigger down payment, and maybe the financial covenants are a little stiffer. What's going to happen is you're just going to have to decide your unique circumstances, and then weigh the options. And this is kind of like where people like me come in. Constantly be looking at alternatives and weigh them. It's really not yes or no, go or no go, black and white. All right, here's a tip. Shop around. When it comes to finding the right financing option, it's important you do the research. I know that sounds like a platitude, but why am I saying it? Because people don't. You need to compare the terms from various lenders. Various. The word various means more than one. Why did I say it? Because I talked to people about this who they go to bed with a loan broker or some lender. They're just the nicest people. Well, you're really naive if you're not talking to 2 or 3 really nice people. Don't forget that even if you sign for a corporation, you may still be held personally liable for corporate debts. And that's why it's essential. Guess what? Talk to the lawyer. I know there's a lot of legal debate about this. You better understand that debate, because when you sign for that corporation, And if you don't know you're also going to be personally obligated, it's a big surprise. Okay, here's an example. And it's a trap for people who do not get the right advice. It's a provision which might be sneaked into a contract. Listen to this one. I'm going to read. Where the purchaser is a corporation, in consideration of extending credit to it, the officer or officers signing on behalf of such corporation, comma, hereby personally guarantee the payments here and above provided for. Oops. What do you do if you see that provision in a lease or a loan document? How about even in a company purchase and sale agreement? I put that in there. I think that's the only legal clause I put in just because I've seen it. All right, you better ask your lawyer about that one, okay? Hope you took a good note. What I can tell you is sneaky stuff happens. Anyone can sue you for anything. Hey, they do it even if they don't have a winnable case. And you can waste a whole lot of time and money just trying to break the case, even if you're right. It can be nasty out there on the playing field. So just be aware of that. I wonder if you know this. When it comes to the personal guarantees, remember, it's a two-way street. It's not just buyers and borrowers who are required to sign PGs. Sellers of small and mid-sized businesses may also provide their personal guarantee to buyers and, comma, in some cases, comma, buyers may require it in exchange for their own PG. Pause. Now, from the seller's perspective, providing a personal guarantee, well, it's a way to demonstrate their commitment to fulfilling their obligations. So it's really important to what? Consider all the parties involved in a PG and to weigh the potential risks and benefits before you sign. Here's a tip. I'm just going to sort of say what I said a second ago because I just don't think I get this delivered. Before you negotiate, understand why the other party is requesting that personal guarantee and know the implications for all parties. What I see people do is they're talking about the personal guarantee and they get real nervous and then they start negotiating. No, you got to know this before you begin negotiating. You need to understand. That's what homework's all about. Be careful of anecdotal information, the people who've never done a deal telling you how to do deals, or the person who's done one deal and acting as if, they're masters of the universe. I see this weekly. Here's another question. Where am I on that list? Okay. What do I risk if I sign a personal guarantee? Well, you risk your personal assets. Duh. Your personal guarantee, well, it can hurt your credit score and your ability to get credit. Well, what about bankruptcy? Guess what? You might not be able to, protect all your assets. What's this? Okay, next question. What can pierce a corporate veil? This was the one I love a lot because I hear it all the time and I see it on social media. People are so naive. They think that that corporation or some other legal maneuver protects them personally. That's just nonsense. You see, in the world of business, you need to understand that there are circumstances where that corporate veil can be pierced and it will expose you to personal liability. I don't care what your contracts say. What are some of the things that can be used to make that happen? Well, someone can accuse you of engaging in tortuous conduct. And that's something you do that harms people or organizations, costs them money. I think we saw a news organization get in trouble this week on that one. If you find yourself in this situation, it's important to seek the right legal, and I do mean right legal. Keep in mind your opponent's lawyers, it's their job to accuse you of things. That's how they pierce the corporate veils. Not nice. They could say things like, well, you were part of a fraudulent conveyance or you committed some other fraud, because see, that's how they get around the corporate veil. Oh, they could say you failed to maintain proper records, or maybe you didn't comply with legal requirements, fraud, misrepresentation. They could even say that you're operating a sham legal entity. All these things can put you at risk, even if you didn't do those things. Now, you don't want to do those things, but remember, that's how they're going to come after you. Here's another tip. When taking on a personal guarantee, look, it's essential to understand the obligations. I made a note to say that 5 times. Now I have. I hope I don't say it again. You got to know the type of risks, timing, scope, blah, blah, blah. Oh, let's see. Oh, yeah. You need to really be clear on what kind of events can trigger that personal guarantee. We'll talk about that later, but the triggering is important. And what can you do in advance to, let's say, postpone or reduce that trigger or nullify it? For you planning to sell your company or loan money, you got to understand this stuff too. And don't forget, there are some continuing obligations that can come up with landlords and former owners. Former owners and landlords can be helped or hurt by personal guarantees. Okay, what's the next question? What can I do to counter the business seller's request for my PG? Well, ask for something in return, such as an earnout or partial forgiveness of the seller note if the business doesn't perform the way you and the seller thinks it will before you bought the business. Here's a tip. Why shouldn't the business seller partially financing the buyer share in the risk? I'm going to say that one again, because sometimes when I raise that with my clients, the light goes on. Oh, I don't have to be the only one at risk. Why shouldn't the business seller financing the buyer share in the risk? There are ways to do it just besides that note. Okay, here's a tip. Ask your lawyer about the pros and cons of signing joint and several if someone else participates in the PG. I might give you, I'll try to give you another tip on that later where I think the timing's right. Another tip. It's important to be aware of the details, because if you're not aware of the details, including what's not being said that you better know about, how are you going to negotiate favorable terms? One of the things I hope you'll do is try to avoid short fuse PGs. You do that by negotiating when the personal guarantee will go in effect. You should also consider how the triggers are going to be enforced. It's one thing to know what they are, but how are they going to be enforced? So, well, for example, would it be you missed a payment or two or a whole year's worth? Or maybe the business's working capital didn't meet a metric, or maybe the net worth isn't what a covenant or your agreement says it will be during the term of the PG. If somebody triggers that PG, you get to spend a whole lot of time and money with lawyers while you're trying to run a business or fix what's wrong, but maybe nothing's wrong. I mean, what if this was, I don't know, June of 2020 during the pandemic, and everybody didn't know how they should be using their money and they weren't paying rent, or maybe you didn't make a payment, but that only lasted for a month or two. Can you see what I'm trying to tell you here? Pay attention to time frames. Is it calendar days or business days? I know that sounds simple, but guess what? Sometimes that's not said. Ask your lawyer, what are the options for recourse before the PG, the personal guarantee, can be triggered? And while we're talking about that, why can't you just negotiate a limited guarantee? And I'm going to provide a whole lot of tactics on that just in a few minutes. Hey, what about the timing and format of notifications between the parties? I sent you an email when you didn't make payment. Well, I didn't get that email. I sent you a certified letter. I didn't see it. Well, because maybe your company, your receptionist signs it, she puts it in your to-do box. It got so big, you never got to it. You better be really clear on how you make how notifications are handled. You know, all those things are going to affect your risk, your liability. Here's another tip. I know this is a little controversial, so why don't I just say that? Don't over leverage the deal. LTV, loan to value. The higher your equity contribution, the better terms you can negotiate. Now, some people believe that a loan to value above 60, that's 60%, is too risky. Think about it. With my clients, we do financial modeling to see just how much loan to value we can play with, because it's not that, hey, we want to get the deal and we want to get financing, but we also do not want to lose our investment when the business can't handle the debt. So be careful with these 90% financing. Just think about it. Another tip, understand the law. This is a big one. Understand the law and about the timing of your transferring of assets. I'm talking personal assets and business assets before and after you complete your business deal. Hiding the ball is risky. Hope you listen to that one again. I see it all the time. Lawyers make a ton of money on that one. Another tip, ask your lender if your home is at risk. And hey, what if your home equity is really low? I mean, like not much. But if you're going to lose everything else, wouldn't it still be nice to have a house? Could you maybe carve out your $50,000 or $1 million of home equity? Just mention it. Another tip, ask about the lender's advance rate. Now, you want to do this whether or not you provide a personal guarantee. Look, let me look at what I have here on the screen. This is from Investopedia.com, talking about advance rate. An advance rate is the percentage of the value of the collateral that a lender is willing to extend as a loan. The advance rate helps the borrower determine what kind of collateral to bring to the table to secure the desired loan amount, and it helps minimize the lender's loss exposure when accepting collateral that can fluctuate in value. All right, let's see. What's it? Next question. What are the consequences of defaulting on a personal guarantee? Well, they can be severe, that's what. Here are some of the, let's say, some of the penalties and some of the actions. Well, first, your creditor may choose to what? File a lawsuit against you and obtain a judgment, and this can result in wage garnishment, asset seizure, and this is financially devastating. Second, your debt may be assigned to a collection agency. Oops. And they may take legal action and charge or add on expensive fees. Hey, that is what they do. And that can compound your financial difficulties. It can make it harder to pay off the debt. This is what I'm talking about, timing and trigger events and when people act. Once it gets to that collection agency, a debt you might have been able to pay or settle, you may not be able to. Third, if the debt is secured by collateral, well, let's say, such as property or maybe other kinds of assets, your creditor may be able to foreclose or repossess them, lickety split. Guess what? You now don't have those assets. What if you needed them in the business? Let's say you're in the moving and storage business and someone repossesses the truck. How about another tip? Don't assume you can pawn off your risk to investors. No, I see this all the time. People out there with pitch decks getting investors, and then they only find out that the investor is not going to participate in any way in risk, particularly personal guarantees. So guess what, folks? You better nail that down before you try to go searching for businesses or buy a business, because if what you bring to the table is not going to satisfy the lender or the seller or the landlord or any trade creditors that are going to have any kind of credit risk, they're just going to tell you to pound sand, go bye-bye. So just imagine how much time and money you could waste all the way through pre-LOI due diligence, for example, only to find out that there's is a PG or a walk. Here's another tip. Know the implication if you reside in a community property or let's say versus a separate property state, because it's going to affect the limits of liability and some other things. All right, let's look at another question.
Ted,
Another question. Everybody needs to have their mics off. I think they are, but I just heard.
Ted, can I ask you a question?
No, there is no question. Use the chat box. I cannot be interrupted. Thank you.
Can't see your slides.
I've asked you to use the chat box. Thank you. Okay, what kind of contract provisions can waive a personal guarantee? Look, I got tossed here. Let me look at my outline. Well, first, hey, how about a non-recourse loan is an agreement where the lender may not have recourse. Second, keep in mind that a corporate guarantee allows a corporation to assume full responsibility for fulfilling the terms of that contract. So you don't need a personal guarantee. Third, how about letters of credit issued by a bank to guarantee payment to the seller if the buyer fails to fulfill their obligation? And this protection doesn't require a personal guarantee. One of the very first deals I did more than 30 years, which is one of my claims to fame, where somebody got filthy rich, the personal guarantee was at play. My guy wouldn't do it, period. I represented the buyer, but his bank would provide a letter of credit, and we did a deal, and we took that company to the stratosphere. You know, hey, watch out. Your LLC operating agreement may include a provision that limits the personal liability of the members of the company. And that it might be able to shield some personal assets. But don't depend on that one. Keep listening. We're going to cover a little more on that. I have a book, has 500 creative financing tactics, been around forever. People who buy businesses that use it before they buy, or even after, they immediately put in some things where they can increase cash flow and profit. You could go to my website, download it, okay? Partneroncall.com, how to get all the money you want for your business without stealing it. We have a USA version, we have a Canadian version. Hey, we even, thank you, Alex, have a UK version. My client in England edited, and now it's available on Amazon. The other one you can download from my website if you're in Canada or the USA. All right, look, here's a tip for sellers. If you're looking to reduce the exposure of your confidentiality, here's a tip. Be crystal clear to potential buyers that you require a personal guarantee, even if they're a legal entity, such as an LLC. I'm not telling you you have to get one, but if you're going to demand one, make that clear up front so everyone doesn't waste time and money. It's going to help you with that really bad surprise. Let's say it's during pre-LOI due diligence or afterwards, and you've hired a lawyer to look at the buyer's LOI, or maybe it's toward the end of due diligence, and finally up comes this thing about, I need a PG. Get it out at the appropriate time. That's where your lawyer or maybe business broker can help you decide on how to do it. We don't like it on the buy side when you surprise us with that. Now, if we're facing buyer competition, I guess we'll do anything you want, because if we want the deal, we got to outbid the dumbest buyer. Now, let's also look at the lenders, but don't panic. You can also negotiate terms with them, okay? Another tip, everyone knows this, but I need to be on record for saying it, just sweeten your offer. If you're the buyer, sweeten your offer. If you're the seller, sweeten your offer. You could, as a buyer, pay a higher price in return for no PG, or you could pay a lower price if the seller demands the PG. What about offering a higher interest rate on seller financing instead of a PG, or maybe offer profit sharing instead of a PG? Here's another tip. When considering the risk of defaulting, one of the things you want to look at is what's the likelihood? I mean, sometimes this is a boogeyman that's never going to come after you. What's the likelihood of your lender pursuing legal action? Keep in mind that the kind of assets you have and how gettable they are, or to transfer them, is going to have a significant role on the lender's decision to pursue legal action. They may engage you in other kinds of ways to get paid, which would be good for you. Typical lenders usually go after the business assets first, and then they come after you. but maybe they do it simultaneously. I don't know. You better look into that. How about this tip? Think about how much money you need to borrow, but also think about how much money you're going to need within the next year or so. Maybe you need to get it all now because the risk of financing could go up later. On the other hand, if you over leverage, you may never get a chance to run a successful business. That's a tough one. Another tip is, it may not, remember, I'm not giving legal advice. I'm just saying it may not be a good idea of your spouse to sign a personal guarantee unless you want to put more assets at risk or put your relationship at risk. So this is a personal observation on my part. I've seen a lot of deals fall apart in escrow, buyers and sellers there to sign to complete the deal, and the spouse, who's, let's say, in a community property state and somehow obligated or has agreed to sign, won't. Says, nope, I'm not risking my net worth on that. Okay, when I said a lot, it's not really a lot. There have been a few, but it's no fun when that happens. Here's another question. What are some alternatives to a personal guarantee? Well, we did talk about collateral, and it can be financial assets, physical assets. You can have co-signers. You can have a business guarantor. Hey, you know what? That can be a third-party guarantor. Maybe it's your rich uncle or someone, listen to this, or someone whose business it is to provide guarantees in return for payment. Of course, we talked about letters of credit from the bank. Those are just a few things. Another tip, everyone talks about, well, I'll just go get a non-recourse loan. Well, you better be looking into how do you qualify for that? And is this going to, even with a non-recourse, is there going to have to be some limited guarantee, or could I just get limited recourse? And what about specific events? You got to nail those down. You see, concessions, well, they're available to you if you know what you're doing. Keep in mind that the smaller, this is important for those of you looking at micro businesses, the smaller the company, the more the lenders and the sellers are going to want to hedge their risk. And PGs is one of the ways they protect themselves. Now, first-time buyers, you are risky, I know. Even those of you who've gone to Harvard and et cetera, et cetera. If you're a first-time buyer, people are nervous. You may have a wonderful team, but sellers and lenders are nervous. So one of the things you need to do is really pitch that team, your professional advisors, and maybe industry experts who are helping you. Lawyers are not enough. If you're a first-time buyer, you've got to show everything behind you that are going to help you in the battle, and then when you're running the company, successfully manage it. Education is not enough, trust me. Hey, you know, you can schedule releases on your personal guarantee over a period of time, or maybe in relation to the outstanding debt. Or, hey, what if the business gets a whole lot more profitable? Why is that personal guarantee necessary? Why can't we just make it go bye-bye? Maybe you'll use it for something else, or maybe you can sleep at night with peace of mind if you don't have a personal guarantee that's no longer needed. See, these are negotiating, well, maybe sound bites. Another tip, your lawyer is going to talk to you about the pros and cons, but what about indemnification provisions? Hey, what about a liability cap or a basket? What about materiality qualifiers? I'd like to define those for you, but I'm really not, because that could, maybe some would say I'm giving you legal advice. So just write those down, look them up, talk to your lawyer. What about third-party risk exposure? Hey, what about a hold harmless provision? One of the things that I hope you'll do is you need to understand the difference between a guarantee and an indemnity, and whether your risk goes beyond what's in writing, such as in your personal guarantee or other legal documents. Ambiguity kills. Another tip is to negotiate when your PG could be activated. Let's say the number or timing of missed payments, financial metrics, capital. We talked about that. I need to say it again because it just shouldn't be easy for personal guarantee to be triggered. All right, look. I understand that what you're hearing today is, well, it's like drinking from a fire hose. It's overwhelming. You probably won't remember all the details. that we're going to cover now, or that you learn on your own? When you're in the midst of deal making, it's not easy. I can't remember this stuff. That's why I put it in writing, and I'm always looking at notes and outlines. Don't worry, I'm here to help you. Schedule a private Zoom with me. I'll provide you with the checklist, everything I'm looking at right now, plus a whole lot more that you can use to identify what you need to know, the alternatives, negotiating employees, that kind of stuff. You'll get at least 128 ideas. I'm covering several dozen today, maybe up to 100, but there are quite a few more. Zoom with me. I'll just give you that checklist. No, I'm not giving it to you unless we Zoom. So you can just come back to this on my website or my YouTube channel and slowly go through it, maybe run the caption thing, subtitles, and get more ideas. Okay, here's a tip. How about making the value of what you pledge covered by your PG, make it a percentage of the balance remaining on your financing, or maybe the company's profitability, all right? Keep in mind, everyone's thinking about that debt to equity ratio and the coverage of debt service. Here's a tip. What are you going to do? This is so important. What are you going to do if you give your PG and another circumstance comes up and someone else demands that PG? Hey, landlords and equipment suppliers are known to do it. What are you going to do when there's one outstanding? Check out my YouTube video. How to buy a business in a seller's market. What you're going to find particularly eye-opening is what a lawyer said during that video, who co-sponsored this event with me, about the stickiness of personal guarantees with landlords. Here's another tip. How about scheduling your PG just simply to expire after a certain amount of time? Okay. Be careful. Your lender might declare your PG in default, or your loan in default, particularly your loan, if you make any change in ownership of the company without the lender's advanced approval. Be aware your risk when you pledge your assets. What if you just simply give somebody a lien on your home? Well, bankruptcy might not apply. You know, when it comes to paying the bills and borrowing money, it's crucial to keep your personal and business finances separate. You know, as the saying goes, use personal credit cards for personal and business cards for business, because that's the way they can get to you. Oh, wait a second. This is something, I made a note on this. This is really scary. Have you checked the fine print in your business credit card's membership agreement? Does it hold you personally liable for all payments made with the card, even if it's for your company expense and in your company name? You might be surprised to find that. Read that fine print. Here's an excerpt from an email to me. Hi, Warren, this is you. I applied for a loan that I'll use for a down payment and related advisory fees toward a business acquisition. The application states that by signing, I'll be a personal guarantor of the obligations. It also gives them permission to check more of my personal information. See what I mean? Pay attention to the small print. Hey, be careful if you're going to use sophisticated financial scenarios, things like options warrant, convertible notes, etc. I'll cover some of those in my outline I share with people who Zoom with me. But, you know, fancy footwork, you better be adept at skipping over the stones and the gaps. Lenders are going to have a say about it. You need to know about those things so that you don't get deep into a deal and find out that buyer and seller are in agreement and the lender just ain't going to go for it. Another tip, what about personal guarantee insurance? Why don't you Google that? Get some examples, learn where it's available, what it costs. It doesn't cost too much. The policies, you assign them to the lenders, and guess what? You might get a lower interest rate because you have personal guarantee insurance. Or how about this one? You might even get a loan, which you won't get if you didn't have that personal guarantee insurance. What about key man life insurance? That can help protect downside. let's look at, where are we on this? Almost done with these questions. How can I become more adept when asked for my PG? Well, as you navigate this world of business deals, you're gonna be faced with a personal guarantee all the time. And it's a daunting prospect. It's no fun. So you have the right approach. Here are some tips. Be cautious and aware. Don't rush into anything. Fully understand the implications. Ask for the rationale. Remember, we talked about this. Ask for the rationale behind the request and make sure you understand what's at stake for them and you. How about taking the time? Just comprehend the terms of that guarantee. In English, it just makes a lot of sense to you, but your lawyer may say, oh no, boy, that is really a pitfall. So you need to know what you're agreeing to. We've talked about the lawyers. Be sure you do that. And don't be afraid. If you don't negotiate, hey, I have a friend, she says, the answer is no if you don't ask. Same here. If you don't negotiate or try to negotiate, you're going to just have to take what somebody dishes out to you. Well, you don't always have to do that. Remember, buyer competition can force you to do that. 6, just keep aware. What else could I do to avoid that personal guarantee or get it limited? And you know what? Your lender is going to do it. The seller is going to do it if they're providing financing. So you got to closely monitor. Are you complying with all your agreements? How are those key performance indicators doing? Are you reporting them? What are the early warning signs? You got to be right on top of this because those triggers are ready to be pulled. And one more time, just ask sellers and lenders, is there anything I can do where I can get what I need from you without a personal guarantee? And somebody may say, go get a personal, go buy personal guarantee insurance or go get a letter of credit. It could be that simple. Another question, okay, I think, is this the last one? Yeah. What should I do when dealing with a PG? Well, don't sign anything till you understand it. We talked about it. Don't forget your credit score and what it's going to do to your financial situation. You got to weigh the risks and benefits. Sometimes you really need to walk away. Sometimes the personal guarantee is just not worth it. If for you, your fear is so high. What about contingency plans? One of the things I beg my clients to do is, okay, well, what if that doesn't happen? What are you going to do? Well, what if that doesn't work? What are you going to do? And we like to create scenarios for default. Like, what will we do if it happens? Because, yeah, it's a little scary, but at least forewarned could be forearmed. And don't forget to protect your assets. There are all sorts of ways to do that. Now, you need to do some of these things well before getting out looking at businesses to borrow or borrowing, but there are ways to protect assets legally. Hey, don't sign these blank checks. Okay, I don't want to give legal advice. I wouldn't, from a business point of view, sign a blank check or open-ended guarantee. The terms need to be specific, clear. They need to have leashes on them. Everybody needs to be comfortable. The risks need to be defined. All right, look, I'm coming almost to the end here. I told you earlier, if we Zoom, I'll provide you a list, 128 minimum items that you can learn more about, that you can use. You can use it as a checklist. You can use it to just scan. Maybe out of those, there's 3 or 4 that you want to use and you want to run by your lawyer. So at least you see the full concept. Schedule the Zoom. Also, don't forget, I'll give you a free copy of one of my publications that was used in the recession and the pandemic. It's got lots and lots of cash flow techniques. All right, let's get to the bottom line, all right? Yeah, PGs are risky. You need to negotiate. You need to protect yourself. I'm going to close with a conundrum. A conundrum. It's an important reality. On the one hand, walking away from a deal may be your best alternative if the terms of the guarantee are not acceptable. Or maybe the other party just won't negotiate. Well, that tells you a little bit about what you're going to have to deal with later between buyers and sellers, isn't it? Don't take on more financial risk than you know you can handle. If you can't afford to lose it, don't do it. On the other hand, this is important, this is the conundrum. On the other hand, not providing your PG may and probably will mean missing out on the best opportunities, particularly when you're trying to buy a business. It's not easy to find and acquire businesses without securing the transaction with a personal guarantee. That's the dilemma you face. And I know the get rich quick guys and the people who don't know much are saying how easy it is. It's just not that easy. And, you know, maybe if you're buying a total loser, it's pretty easy. And if you're not borrowing money from a bank, but maybe the seller wants to be paid something for that loser. All right, I'm here. You know where to find me. Partneroncall.com. I can help you make better decisions. I hope you like this, or at least got a few ideas you can use. Let's Zoom. Go to my website, partneroncall.com. Go get my books. You can get them on Amazon. I'm Ted Leverette, the original business buyer advocate. Thanks for listening, and be careful out there.
Hey, you. That's right, you. Have you been looking to buy an exciting and profitable business? Are you tired of searching, but only finding barriers that impede you from owning a wonderful business? Well, have we got some good news for you. You can find and buy the right business the right way. And you don't have to go it alone. For over 30 years, author and transaction advisor Ted Leverette, the original business buyer advocate, has been helping buyers worldwide achieve win-win done deals. Ted Leverette says, you can't buy it if you can't find it. You see, buying a business is all about search. Because if you can't find it, you can't buy it. It's about being best and first. First on the scene with sellers and being the seller's first choice and top of mind for brokers and sellers. And most importantly, avoiding buyer competition. What about having to compete with other buyers? Well, you have to outbid them, which is a good way to pay more than a business is worth. Searchers do better with a winning business buyer marketing plan, and that's where Ted Leverette comes in. He'll help you prepare a winning plan, and then he'll guide your actions so you can find and then buy the right business the right way. But searching is not enough. The reality is too many people buy the wrong business, or they buy the right business, but on the wrong terms. That's why, if you want to buy the right business the right way, it makes sense to have Ted Leverette, the original business buyer advocate, on your advisory team. And one of the best ways to know what the savviest searchers and buyers do is to read Ted Leverette's books, How to Prepare Yourself and Find the Right Business to Buy, and How to Buy the Right Business the Right Way. You can get them at his website, partneroncall.com. Don't chance it. Right now, go to partneroncall.com, get the books, and schedule a free and private telephone conversation with Ted Leverette.